I think it resonates in the sense that you need to plan for profit, right? Like that is the primary thing. And I think often entrepreneurs don't do this fundamentally, like at all. And the problem with that is that it's sort of like, what's the saying? It's like a goal, like a dream without an actual goal is just kind of like a hallucination, right? And I think that like a lot of people hallucinate profit to that end, right? And so they're like, if I do these things, it's like profit's going to go up. It's like the graph is going to go up and to the right. And then it's like, okay, but what's your plan to actually get there? Like, what are the steps that you're going to take to actually go on that road? And I love about the profit first like way of doing things is like you're putting it at the top and then you're saying, okay, how do I make everything else fit? Because generally people look at it backwards and then it's sort of like what's just like left over.
Welcome to the Profit Answer Man podcast. We believe the purpose of business is to make lots of money. We'll show you how to scale and grow your profit and cash flow, all while working less. We're a big fan of the ELF model. Easy, lucrative, and fun. If you're the backbone of America, you deserve to be well rewarded for that. Listen in to see how other business owners are doing it and how to maximize your profit and cash flow. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Nick Avaria. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks for having me, Rocky.
And I'm excited to learn from you. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, so I currently run agency acquisitions. I also currently own about 3 different marketing agencies. And I guess my claim to fame in my current station is that I've bought and sold 7 agencies. Sometimes I've been on the selling end and being acquired by somebody else or buying them. And they've all exited profitably. And or if I sold them, they're still profitable to this day and running well. My background before that was in some mergers and acquisitions in the industrial sector, so nothing to do with agencies at all. I've owned like 4 or 5 different types of businesses, and whether it's like wedding industry or like I owned a pub for a while. So kind of varied. Like I've pretty much done it all, but where I've settled is I love working with B2B firms. I want to help people scale awesome cultures because I think that if I can help a company grow that cares about their people, I can grow a company that is going to be a good employer. And that's exactly how I want to try to give back as much as I can.
And I think that's a big part of small business is being that backbone for the country. Small business creates more jobs than the big businesses do. And they're down there on Main Street and doing the work. And I've always said that if you're going to do that, you deserve to be rewarded too. And unfortunately, too many companies don't get rewarded. And there's a variety of reasons that we're going to talk about today. Before we do, though, one of the simplest ways to get rewarded is to put profit first. And I know you're a fan. You've used it, and maybe you've even kind of deviated with it, which is what I appreciate, because you've got to make the system work for you, not you work for the system. So love to hear your insights.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it resonates in the sense that you need to plan for profit, right? Like that is the primary thing. And I think often entrepreneurs don't do this fundamentally, like at all. And the problem with that is that, it's sort of like, what's the saying? It's like a goal, like a dream without an actual goal is just kind of like a hallucination, right? And I think that like a lot of people hallucinate profit to that end, right? And so they're like, if I do these things, it's like profit's going to go up. It's like the graph is going to go up and to the right. And then it's like, okay, but what's your plan to actually get there? Like, what are the steps that you're going to take to actually go on that road? And I love about the profit first like way of doing things is like you're putting it at the top and then you're saying, okay, how do I make everything else fit? Because generally people look at it backwards and then it's sort of like what's just like left over.
Unfortunately, for a lot of business owners, I think profit is a leftover. It's not an intentional thing up front. What I find is there's 2 kinds of business owners. The first business owner is the one who chases revenue, and they figure one day at some magical number, profit will magically appear. And then at some day, they finally figure out that, you know what, this chasing revenue thing isn't the answer. We actually need to chase profit and cash flow. And we have to change the way we entirely think about our business and say, hey, we're going to be profitable. How do we make everything fit within that framework. And I think that's a big part of it.
I think one of the things is that, to me, like, I think a lot of entrepreneurs look at high profits or like above benchmark profits as this is going to slow me down. And I don't think it does, right? Like, I think there's this like voice in their head that says I'm reinvesting in the business, and that's why everybody says I'm investing in the business, I'm investing in my business, and they're never taking the chips off the table ever, and they're looking at it that way. And I think that's where it begins. Like, that's where the mindset of this goes wrong, is that they're basically like sitting here like investing, and they're never reaping the reward. And you got to do both at the same time.
The way I explain it is really simple. If I called you up, Nick, and said, invest in my business, I think you'd want to know when you're getting your money back. And say, if I'm going to invest in my own business, I should ask myself, A, when am I getting my money back? And how much is the return going to be on this risky thing that I'm putting money in? I better get double back, or at least 50% more, not break even. And if you're not, that's not an investment. It's I don't know what we call that. We have to come up with a word.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is. That's a good question. I mean, but like, look, like, this is where exactly my story came from, right? Around all of this is that I was just investing, doing a merger, doing an acquisition, doing this. And like, it was like, on paper, my operating profit was fantastic. Like, it looked great. And then wham, like, here came like the CapEx, like the investments on like non-day-to-day operational things. And all of a sudden it looked like break even. And I was probably underpaying myself even as a wage on top of all of it. So all I had to show for like all this work and all of this stuff was like, basically, if I had quit my own business, I could have made more money working a job. And that was kind of like the breaking point for me.
Jobs suck, though, but that's a whole nother conversation. And I understand why you want to be a business owner, because you do have control, you do have freedom. But at the same point, you need to get paid, because that's only fair to yourself, and you need to be fair to yourself and make sure that that kind of happens.
And I think on like a risk premium basis, and I don't think that owners like really appreciate this, right? There needs to be some sort of return for the inherent risk of running a business, right?
Well, think about it. How many of them go to the bank and the bank goes, we're not giving you money? Because they go, you're a high risk. And when you do borrow money, you might be paying a lot. Well, you should treat yourself the same way everyone else is telling you your business is. And if you can't loan your business money at a high interest rate, then your idea might need to be shelved.
Yeah. So I guess like the thing that all of this led me to is that there was a point in my businesses where, and I figured this out kind of earlier on, is that I like new things. And one of the things that has really helped me succeed is the fact that I basically just want to do things like maybe like 1 to 4 times, and then I don't want to do it anymore. And so what I got very, very good at, and I think that I got good at this naturally, but I think that this is a learned skill that a lot of entrepreneurs need to take on, is that I want to be able to do the thing once, maybe twice. By the third time, it's pretty standardized. And by the fourth time, I am recording a video of myself doing it and then handing it off to somebody else. And then what I basically realize is that, at least in my businesses, is that I wanted to replace myself in a very specific order out of the tasks of the business. I wanted to replace myself out of all of the administrative functions first, right? So like bookkeeping, minor emails, things like that. Then I wanted to replace myself out of the actual work, meaning like the day-to-day delivery of my product and or service, right? And that had like layers to it, right? In a B2B environment, like the layer was, hey, first of all, it's like the bulk of the work. Then it's the day-to-day client communication. And the last part was the strategic elements of what we were doing. And then after that, letting go of the marketing function. And to me, letting go of the sales function was actually the second to last thing that I would do. And then lastly, leadership, because if I could just replace myself at the leadership level, now I'm kind of in the owner's box. I'm no longer like an employee. Because I mean, like, look, being a CEO in a company is a job. It's not a job, right? If you have a CEO running your business for you, then you're an owner. You're not actually an employee. Just because you employ yourself doesn't mean that you're not an employee, in my eyes.
Why did you leave the sales towards the end?
One thing that I noticed, and look, I don't know if this is true for B2C because I'm not an expert in B2C. But in B2B sales, what I always found is that founders have like almost like what I call the founder's premium on close rate. So it doesn't matter. Like I've seen people, sell like machinery where the owner was involved, higher close rate. I saw time and time again during even like my consulting work, like long ago, and even now, the same process, the same questions, the same, like the sales process is dialed in, right? It's standardized. Founder does it, close rate 10, 20% higher every single time. And you can look at the owner side by side versus a regular salesperson, and the salesperson is actually a way better salesperson than the founder. They just are. But the founder has like the passion, they know the product so well that it even overcomes bad selling practices.
Is it the passion?
I think what happens is that there's an intangible, the information can be packaged in the exact same way, but it's the delivery, it's the non-verbal elements of the sales process that create this founder's premium. So that's why you can like script it the whole nine. There's a difference between somebody understanding the words versus somebody like believing the words because they crafted the words. And that confidence like is a little bit contagious. And that's why it creates this premium on the close rate.
Well, and on top of that, the founders got a belief system because they put all their money, time, and effort into building it. So
Yeah.
they're gonna. I've noticed that because when I coach my clients, sometimes I will have some of their other people on the call, and I can tell the difference. 98% of the time, the employees just have a very different outlook and way of looking at it versus the business owner. And you can just see it. Not to say they're bad employees, they're not. It's just a very different mentality. And I think that comes across, especially if you're selling. And that's a good question. Does it make a difference if it's owner to owner or employee to employee? Then maybe it's not as big of a difference.
I actually don't really think it matters all that much from my experience. And again, this is the experience of somebody that primarily like floats in the groupings of like 1 to 10 million, like businesses doing between 1 and 10. I don't think it matters. I think the founder always gets a premium no matter what, because I think it's a contextual competence that they have around it. Because like, look, if you're running, like a $7 million business and you're still doing a little bit of sales, or at least sales on the big ones, right? The ones that matter. Maybe all the sales of the smaller deals, like that's somebody else, right? But the big ones, you're involved in some way, shape, or form. And I think that the job title does give it a premium on its own without even you opening your mouth. And then when you do, because you understand the delivery of your product or service, you understand all of the things because you're in it, everything's tied into you. You can just speak to things at a context that, what in my opinion happens is that even the salesperson wouldn't even catch the thing that the prospect said. And it's not even maybe what they said, it was like how they said it. And like, they're like, oh yeah, but like our culture's slightly different. And the owner's like, yep, I understand exactly what they're talking about. The salesperson would have glossed over it because they don't understand that is actually going to produce some sort of like resistance at the end of the sale unless we address it right now. Right. And the owner, like all those micro opportunities, the owner picks up on them because they kind of know how these people think. And so they're answering the questions in real time. And then surprise, surprise, at the end, there's no like resistance. There's no like items to negotiate or like items to clear up, right? Because we didn't produce any reason for them to slow down. And if we save all those questions to the end, that's exactly what it produces. The more questions that pile up during a sales process, the slower the sale happens after price is introduced into the equation.
I like to leave price to the end, unless you need to qualify. In which case, you're trying to rule them out. And there's other ways to do that besides price, but it's important that you have to make sure that the person you're speaking to has the budget and the authority to work at whatever level you are. And that's really what the question is. Not so much the price, but are we even in the same ballpark? And should we have that? So you've been talking about the founder, and I haven't talked about this enough, but it seems to be coming up more and more, and I think it needs to be clear cut to people. There is this, we'll call it the desert. You can call it the missing middle. I think that's what you call it.
Yeah.
You can call it the messy middle. It's this part where at the beginning, you built your company, you're the main, rainmaker, and you're the main rain deliverer. So you're making money, life is good. Then you start hiring people and they're working directly with you. And you're managing everything. You've got a few people, everything's going great. At this point, you're probably at 1 million, shooting for 2 million. And now you have to bring in another layer. And the problem is, it's like, when you were kids and you played telephone, one kid tells something to one kid, then that kid said, and by the time it gets to the next person and down the line, everyone's on a different page. And you've lost control of what's going on at the end of the line. And it's during these times that you have to hire great people, not mediocre, not average, which means it costs a lot. And now you've got to build a system and a process that can go from person to layer and survive. And I think this is where that middle, if you don't know how to do that, you don't make that transition, and you don't have enough money to get through that, you're going to blow up in that period.
Yeah, and I think that what generally happens, I've seen this same story unfold time and time again. Profitability goes down, right? Because you're hiring somebody that's not going to be fully like billable or fully productive in delivering the work or service. And generally the biggest mistake that is made, and I want to address, like, you have to hire the right talent. The challenge is, will the right talent work for you? Right? So like that's a different thing, right? That we should probably touch on. But if you can get the right people to work for you, what you have to understand is that your context on the business is unlike anyone else's. Like, no one's context of the business can touch yours. And so a lot of founders, and I think that this is like maybe like a mix of blind spot and humility, they hire these people and they're like, yeah, you'll figure it out. Like, it's just, because you're steeped in it every single day, right? And this person that's coming in, they didn't have the benefit of the training that going from zero to wherever you are today, like, they don't have the benefit of that training. So you're going to have to train them in conditions that are completely different than what you've experienced. And this catches a lot of people, because all of a sudden it's like, okay, how do I teach this person how to interact with my people to get the best work out of them? And you realize that you think you know how to train that person on that, and you don't. And it's because you don't have any behavioral change systems, right? You can call them middle management systems, you can call them behavior change systems. And you also probably don't have any data, right, to inform that. So like, if you don't have dashboards and like the right numbers and right objectives or OKRs or all of these other things, right? If you don't have those things going, a lot of managers are, a lot of owners, when they hand it off to the managers, they're managing by feel, right? They're just sort of like, it works because like I'm tapped into everything. And if something goes wrong, I see it immediately, right? And all of a sudden you have to build out the actual business. And guess what? As a founder, entrepreneur, you signed up to make a great product or service. You didn't sign up to, write middle management playbooks and policy and bureaucracy and racy matrices and all of these other things that are, like, to you probably incredibly boring. But guess what? If everybody could win by doing exciting stuff, everyone would win. The things that are going to make you win from today on, if you're like in this desert, the missing middle, as I call it, like, the things that are going to make you win are the things that you just don't want to do. They're super boring, or you think they're boring. There's other people out there that love this stuff. They think that it's the greatest thing ever. They love working on it. But you as a founder, if you're the prototypical founder, which 98% of you are, you're going to find during process, reports, all of this stuff, like, this is soul crushing to you, right? And if you have enough discipline, you'll do them anyway and you'll win, or you won't, and you'll kind of get stuck in the desert and wander around there for a few years.
Well, so I think the first thing is making a decision. And this is the conversation I have with a lot of business owners. And it's kind of the call of, stay small and keep it all, or grow and do that. Just understand that there are pluses and minuses to each side of that. And you have to decide, what do you really want? And the other half is, if you're not profitable at 2 million, God help you. Like it
Yeah,
ain't going to
yeah.
get fixed at 4 million,
No,
right?
it's gonna become way worse.
It's going
Yeah.
to become worse. And so if you're not in a position of strength at 2 million, you're probably not going to make it, because you don't have enough fuel to make it through the tough times. So just be intentional and know, this is where I want to go and this is the life that I want. And there's nothing wrong with running a nice, small, highly profitable business that's fun and enjoyable, and you get to do what you love.
Yep. And I think that, like, what you've mentioned here is that I think a lot of people think, if I don't grow this thing, if I don't grow it to a certain size, then what's the point of it all? Right. And there is a lot of points. I mean, like, there's people that run, lifestyle businesses that they have so much fun and they're profitable and like they lead great lives. And yeah, I mean, it does come with like the caveat of you're going to be a little bit anchored to your desk once in a while, and but that's just the trade off of it all, right? And that's okay. But to your point, like, if you're not profitable at 2, it's a slog, because what's going to happen, and I think most people realize this in hindsight after they started climbing right beyond 2, problems scale, and they scale faster than revenue. And if you're really good at sales and marketing, and you didn't solve the core fundamental issues of the business, you've kind of learned this the hard way, because all of a sudden you climb up and you're like at 3, 4, 5 million, and all of a sudden, like the bill comes due, and now the sales and marketing can't cover the hole anymore. Because I mean, all the sales and marketing do, if you can sell fast enough, is cover the hole. But the hole's still there. So it buys you time so you can fill it in the meantime. But if you didn't, guess what happens? You're gonna hit this like glass ceiling. You're not gonna stay there. You're gonna bounce off of it and come tumbling down. And whether that means going from, like, I've seen people go from 12 million a year down to like 6 or 7 because they bounced off really hard. I've seen people bounce off at 5 or even 4, lose like 1 million or maybe 1.5 million on their top line revenue. And it's hard to get back up. And not only is it hard to get back up, the process of bouncing off of that, like, glass ceiling, when you do that, it takes you like a good year to 2 years to kind of get everything back in gear and make a second attempt at like going back up again.
I think what I find is, when they bounce back down, they built the team and the infrastructure for the whatever size business they became.
Yeah.
And a lot of them built it before it occurred. So they over capacity themselves, hoping for the growth, and maybe they got the growth. When the downturn comes and you start losing and burning through cash, the amount of time it takes to recover that cash is a vast multiple of the amount of time it took to lose it. So what
Oh,
it
yeah.
takes you to lose in a month might take you 6 months to recover. And if it takes you 3 months to pivot, you got an 18-month slog to get out of the hole.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the bigger issue, is doing that. And that's why we like slower growth, and we're constantly testing and proving it out. Because if I'm doing, and I'll just make up numbers, I'm selling 100 units a month and I make a mistake, okay, I got to fix maybe 30 of them, because that
Yeah.
it was 30% had the issue. But if I now go to 500, I now have to fix 150. And the reality is, because I'm further away from the issue, I'm probably going to have 3 different problems, which means I'm fixing 450 things.
Yeah.
And that gets out of hand.
And you still have to produce more that month while the problem was there. So you're still producing more defects as you go. So you got it, like, the hole's massive. And it's like, how do you catch back up?
And I think that's why it's a struggle and so forth. Any advice for how to shift the way you think as you're going through that?
Yeah, I think that one of the things I said earlier is that I never wanted to repeat the work too much that I did, and that was like naturally occurring in me. The first thing is sort of like this emotional barrier. And the emotional barrier, in my opinion, is as entrepreneurs, especially when we started out, like we were the hero. And if a problem happened, we salvaged it. And if a different thing occurred, like we were there. Like we were basically the firefighter. We were, you know, the Superman or whatever, analogy you want to use. And we wore like the hero cape. And the primary and that's like I would also call that like founder behavior, right? It's like the founder's always the superhero of the day. Nobody else is the hero. Everybody is just a victim to be saved, right? Client, employees, everything. The CEO is in the business of making heroes. So they are not the hero. They're in the business of making them and or gathering them, either or, right? Ideally both. And they create environments where other people can step up and do the things and be self-sufficient and not be second guessed. So they feel like they have like a cheerleader in their corner. They feel like they are supported with the right systems and elements and resources, and they're being put in positions where they're accountable as well, and they have full ownership over the things that they have responsibility over, right? And that's what more so like a CEO does versus the founders. Like, oh, like you fell, like let me help you get up and fix the problem, right? It's like, well, the next time that problem is going to happen again, if like we equivalent this to like a pothole, it's like, well, this exact same pothole in the exact same position, like half a mile ahead, they're going to hit that one too. Are you going to help them with that one too? Or are you going to show them how to either A, avoid, or B, fill these things on their own so that they're capable of like being self-sufficient? And then they get excited because they're like, oh, hey, I'm overcoming my limitations, right? And they're going to be even more apt to learn and evolve, and with it the business, right? Because as the employees get better, the business will inevitably get better. And I think this goes back to a point that we touched on a little bit earlier in passing, which is to get the best people, you have to move away from founder level operation and into like CEO level operation, which are two fundamentally different things, because the best employees, the best executives, the best managers do not work for founders. They work for CEO.
And that's kind of a mindset shift of realizing that and making those kinds of changes there. And that's very true. I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. AI is here. And I think that we've gone through wave one. And at the end of wave one, we're starting to see some massive signs of dramatic shifts. And I think there's a couple things that I'm noticing. Number one, everyone started throwing a ton of content out because they could make it with AI. And so I think there's so much content that people stop paying attention to it anymore. And so I think we're going to go back to old school. And old school to me is postcards, knocking on doors, right? Making face to face connections, because then I know you're real. You're not some AI generated whatever. I know I'm talking to a real person. And I think there's that yearning is going to become even more so to be able to do that. The other thing is I'm noticing that a lot of people trust AI too much, or they don't have enough knowledge to question the AI. So I'll be honest, like if I could use AI in my business to do all my financial stuff, I would love it. I've tried. Point blank, it sucks. There are things that it is really good at. And we use AI every single day. So this is not
Yeah.
like, oh, it's horrible. It's just, I've learned where it's helpful. I've
Yeah.
learned where it's not. I've learned how to use it. And we were chatting before. I think people need to understand how to use it and how to look at it. And you made a point, and I agree with this because I see it. If your core stuff isn't good or you're not smart enough, and that's not to mean that you're not smart, but if you don't know enough to challenge the AI, it's going to take you down a losing path. If you know what you're doing and you understand what you're doing it can take you down a winning path, but you've got to constantly rein it in.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I literally call AI the win more button. And and if you're not winning more with it, you're just losing faster, which has its own benefits to it, by the way, which I'll get into. But I'll say that I personally divide AI into two camps. Okay, there's automation, which a lot of people are like, it's AI. It's like, no. If it's an AI function that's just ferrying information from one place to another where it doesn't need to interpret, it's like, it's sort of just automation. And by the way, I believe in wholeheartedly all in automation. I'm all in on automation. I'm sold, right? Like, great administration, things like that done. When we get into the second half, which I would call more like what I would say like is actually like AI, this is where there's challenges, and this is where the hallucinations happen. And here's where you have to audit the automation stuff too, and like make sure that it's on the up and up. But this is where you really need like a lot more involvement. And why I call it the win more button is because if you're like an amazing expert, AI can make the output that you do double, triple, quadruple as much as before. So you're winning more. But if you don't know what you're doing and it gives you like a pile of slop, you're just losing faster. And what I was saying earlier about, hey, there's its own benefits of losing faster. If you're losing faster, but taking a critical eye and reverse engineering why it's not working, it means that you can iterate faster in order to begin winning, which is amazing, right? But the problem is that if all you're doing is just producing more volume of something that doesn't work, it still doesn't work. It's like there is an element of this where it's like a 1 or a 0. Like, did the lights, when you flick the light, did it turn on or is it still off? There is no halfway about it, right? And so when you hear like a lot of AI experts online, and like, and I'm sick of going on, different social platforms, it's like, it's like AI just replaced all ad buyers, AI just replaced all like email writers, AI replaced all designers. It's like, last I checked, like, it's like almost every designer that is worth their salt is still employed.
That right there is the key. If you're good at what you do, you're employed. If you're
Yeah,
mediocre, so is
that's the
AI.
danger. That's the danger. I mean, like, look, it's like I know designers that use AI, and they're like, they'll attest to it. It's like, I can iterate, I can ideate with it, I can use it as like instead of talking to another creative, I can use it to bounce ideas off of it. I can ask it to give me an exhaustive list of what it thinks it's right, so that I can like say like, nah, I don't agree with this, or oh, that's interesting. Combine it with their own ideas. Like, these things are amazing, and it's, again, more efficiency, more productivity. It's real. But that's why it's the win more button, because the context of this is that this person is already like a top 20% person in the job market, and you pair them with AI, amazing things happen. But if your ideas are mediocre to begin with, all you're going to get is more mediocre ideas faster. That's all that's going to really happen here. And so there needs to be a foundation. And like, here's what I'll say. Depending on the complexity of the thing that you do, the expert matters more, right? The more complex it is, the more important that strategic level element, and even maybe like advanced tactical level element, matters when paired with AI. The more basic it is, the less it matters, right? And so like, people are like, is there like a one size fits all AI? And I look at it like, okay, you have like an LLM, or maybe even you have your own proprietary model over top of it on your side. That's element one. Element two is how good your people are, right? And but I assure you that maybe this is not true 6 months from now, or maybe 2 years from now. Currently, the bottleneck on how good the work is the person. It's not the AI.
And so this is funny because next to all those ads you're seeing telling you about how the world is ending, there's all these people telling you how to use AI. The problem is AI, it's not just the prompt, it's the conversation. And if you don't know how to critically think or how to bring in specific parts or how to work through it, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get a great result. And you'll get a result that sounds phenomenal,
Absolutely.
but is technically wrong. And anyone who knows well will just kind of laugh at it and go, no, you're wrong. And then AI go, oh, you're right. I made a mistake. Let me fix it. And then 16 more of those back and forths, you'll finally get to where you need to be. But you have to know how to challenge it to that extent to say, no, you're wrong.
The thing that I've noticed is like, I mean, and I'll say this, like, because I do want anybody hearing this to know that when they hear these, like, I call them like AI influencers, like the people that are real people that are telling you like this thing replaces this thing replaces this. These people are not experts at the thing that they say that AI replaces. So they have no clue. So when they say, "Oh, this thing replaces all designers. This thing replaces all like email writers or whatever," it's like you need to understand that the reason that they're saying this is because they prompted it and it wrote an email. Like they're not examining if they send that email, will it generate a sale? Will it generate the intended action that that email had? Will the design actually prompt like belongingness in a person and want them to click on that ad or whatever else it is? Like all they know is that like I told it to make an image and it made an image. I told it to make an email and it made an email. They're not questioning whether or not it actually generates some kind of tangible result that like is valuable in a business setting, right? And so before you freak out and you're like the world's coming to an end and blah blah, everybody's doing this and I'm not. It's like I assure you that the number of people that have figured out how to actually make this commercially viable without a human is either almost no one, and like and if it is even like any people at all, like we would probably know about it because their businesses would be going back gangbusters. So I'm not saying it's impossible, and there are examples of that out there, but it's like, man, are there a few examples about it. For the most part, it's about pairing and finding the absolute best talent and then pairing them with AI.
And I agree with you. You know, I noticed Bitcoin is tanking. And it could be because the people who were hyping Bitcoin are now hyping AI and trying to make money
They kind
over
of are.
there.
They kind of are.
Who knows? You're in the marketing space, in the agency space. And I think this is one of the biggest struggles that a lot of business owners have. It's something they can't wrap their head around. Like, how do we know and how do we truly judge good marketing? Because more often than not, what I see them do is abdicate responsibility or throw money at something. And then they wonder why they don't have results.
I think that the number one reason most marketing doesn't work is because owners step away from it too soon, to your point, because no one knows the customer the way that you did when you were at that like 1 to 2 million mark. And I'm going to go as far as saying that if you're say at like 5, 6 million, you don't know the customer as well as you did when you were half your size, because you stopped interacting. If you stopped interacting with them directly on an ongoing basis, and by ongoing basis, I mean, you were the salesperson. You were also on the front line delivering the thing. You were talking to them after the job was done, like, because you were in it, right? That is like the golden opportunity to like capture, like you have to bottle that lightning. And the people that do, that's why they like once they start getting like this like messy middle stuff in, they just shoot up like a rocket. Like they just go up to like 10, 20, 30, 50, whatever million, and like they do it and it's like smooth because they bottled that lightning of their understanding of their customer, and then they were able to pass that on, and then it was able to the next person that took it was able to iterate it, but they started off with like a premium product or a premium vision of what the client is and what they wanted, right? And when they abdicate it, it's sort of like, yeah, here's my target audience. It's like, okay, like what matters to them? Like that nuance like kind of disappears over time.
No, I think that that's very, very true. And it's also, you know, your client best and you know the sales process the best, and you've got to build it before you turn it over. And I think a lot of people don't, it's very hard to get the ideas out of the owner's head and into a process that someone else can follow. And until that gets done, I think it's a constant struggle. And a lot of times they'll hire a salesperson and say, go sell. That doesn't work because
No.
they don't understand your customer. And if you haven't given them that roadmap and how things work, then they're going to spend a year putzing around and you're going to wonder what happened.
I think and by the way, this is why I think around first administration, that's the first thing I like delegate. Then I delegate the actual delivery, then marketing, then sales. Now, I think that the process of letting go, and a lot of people are like, letting go of the day-to-day service delivery and client communication and whatever else have you is very difficult. And I actually think that the marketing is the actual stage that's the hardest to let go. Because the transition period required, in my experience, is incredibly long if you're doing it right. Because that insight and intuition into what the customer wants, owners are generally fairly poor at like that handoff. And because of that, what you need is you almost need somebody on the marketing side, like a full-time hire, that is trying to reverse engineer your brain. They're literally trying to figure out like, okay, like what is the misalignment I have in my brain about the target audience versus the owner? Because like clearly there's something, and that successful marketer at that stage that you hire is going to basically make their life's work for at least like 3 to 9 months, figuring out what's in your head and how to like what the nuances are behind it. And if they can nail that down, you're going to generate campaigns that work like every single time, because then you have that as the last line of defense in that person that you trained. The problem is, to your point, is like people will hire an agency and then like offload the entire responsibility of what resonates to that agency or to like somebody internal, when in my experience you have to be the signing authority on approving campaigns for a lot longer than you think is probably necessary.
And that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Any closing thoughts that we didn't cover today?
If you're in this desert, the missing middle, what I would tell you to do is, as you're building your middle management layer, make sure that the middle management layer and the frontline layer have very clear objectives and metrics that they need to hit, and make sure that you have a way of seeing that performance at an individual basis and a team basis as well. Number two, make sure that middle managers are trained on middle management things like change management, things like delegation. Not everybody comes out of the box knowing how to delegate innately, right? So change management, delegation, performance management, these are things that you must train your middle management on, and you must have standardized training for this inside of your business. If you don't, what's going to happen when you have a leadership team meeting or a manager meeting, you're going to ask your managers why we're underperforming, and they're going to point the finger at the front line. And then when you talk to the front line, they're going to point the finger at the middle manager. And so the reason that you need all this training and whatever else have you is that you need a document in your business that says the managers owe the following things to the employee. And once the manager has furnished and provided these things to the employee then must perform to these standards. And the employee can put up their hand and say, I do not have the things that I require to succeed. If you can do that, you will fix that missing middle progressively over time. It's not like a one-time thing. And you will be able to get out of the desert of the business.
And these are the things I know most of them don't love to do. And that's okay. You get help or just deal with it. It's a choice. It's up to you, right? You figure out how you're going to make it work for your business. You know, if you get help, you go faster and you make less mistakes. If you want to do it yourself, that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with it. You just have to decide what's the way I'm going to do it and then actually do it. Take the action. If people would like to learn more about you and your services and everything, how do they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Nick Avaria, so Nick space Avaria, or you can find me at Agency Acquisitions with an S.io.
Cool. And we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this unedited video of the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you'd like to catch the full episode and learn more about what we do, check us out at profitcomesfirst.com. We also go through the Profit First book in each and every chapter in the beginning episodes of the podcast, so check those out as well. Thanks for listening, and here's to you having a more profitable and growing business.